Dr.
That is
Dycus
so
and
true.
Jamal, I don't want to leave out the college perspective. As a parent, I think I would probably be even more concerned. And I know there are a few of us here who have that additional concern of having college students. I know, you know, for me last year, my son just graduated from college in the spring, just not knowing what that was going to, you know, look like and everything. But I can't even imagine this year with going back into it. And I think I was just watching on on the news. I think it may have been in Ohio or somewhere like that, but there were just some college students that were actually issued citations of like $500 because they were having large gatherings, and they were having the large gatherings even after having knowledge that several of them were positive for COVID-19. And so when the officer put in the information, the name came up flagged for whatever reason, and I'm not sure how that happened, but it came flagged saying that he had tested positive. And so when he was talking to him about, like, are you positive for COVID-19? He said, yes. He says, about 7 of us are. Well, there are over 30 people in this house, and 7 of you know that you are positive for COVID. And so I just had major concerns for that. Before you come on, Dr. Dycus, I wanted to read real quickly. My goddaughter, Miss Bagsby's daughter, she wanted to be on with us today, but because of COVID and social distancing, one of her weekly classes had to be switched to a Saturday class so that they could switch her. So she wasn't able to come on, and she's in school in Tennessee. And so she wrote this, and I just wanted to read real quick. She says, my name is Clark Bagsby, and I'm a junior biochemistry molecular biology major in Houston by way of Atlanta. I believe my experience returning back to school has been challenging. The adjustment of being by myself is fine because I have done it before. However, I did not realize the effects of being in school during a pandemic had on my mental health. While at school, we have to follow strict guidelines when it comes to COVID. We must wear our mask outside of the rooms. Every 3 weeks or so, we must get tested for COVID. The first couple of weeks on campus, we were quarantined. The dining hall is pickup only. Also, students are allowed sparingly off campus. These measures have been beneficial towards preventing an outbreak of cases like at bigger institutions. However, the stress that comes from knowing there is a confirmed case on campus does not aid in adjusting to the new normal. When the first case broke on our campus, I remember feeling an immense amount of anxiety set in because it was in the same building as I'm in. I felt paranoid and started upping my measures for protecting myself. That alongside school has definitely increased the amount of stress I have. Online learning is challenging to adjust to at first. I was having issues with adjusting to not having the in-person experience. While video camera is a great alternative, it isn't the same as seeing a person's every emotion. In the case of teaching, I feel as if the professor cannot see my confusion, therefore the lecture goes on, while in person the professor would have stopped to address my seeming confusion. Also, I have been experiencing a lack of motivation. I'm not totally sure of where it's coming from, but I am slowly building up my momentum and my motivation as weeks go by and as a routine is established. All in all, while my experience has been a challenging one, I do not regret coming back to campus. I believe this pandemic has made me more self-sufficient in terms of handling my business and school. I am forced to think of new ways to live within the conditions I have been placed in, which I enjoy. It has made me more aware of what else is going on in the world. In light of the recent police killings and COVID internationally, I have been shown how people around the world deal with life and the ups and downs that come with it. I have grown and enjoyed my growth in the pandemic and what it has brought me. And I was like, wow. She said a lot. She said a lot.
That's impressive.
Good job, Miss Bagsby. Good job, Miss Bagsby. So Professor Dycus, can you kind of talk to me? Is some of what Clark's saying, true for what you've seen either last year or just kind of starting out now?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me personally, I have a lot of anxiety, because all of us, our health is in the hands of other people for whom we have no control. If they're not wearing a mask, they're endangering us. But yeah, there's a lot of anxiety, and it breaks my heart, because I think one of the most important things about the college experience is having fun. I really do. It's about making new friends and being away from home in whatever capacity, to whatever degree, and that's really being greatly diminished, and that's just heartbreaking. But I think we all know from college students in our lives or our own experience that a lot of college students are sheltered from the real world, and they don't get the real world. They don't realize that it's out there, and there's no way, I feel like, for me as an instructor to get through to say, hey, the things we're talking about, I really don't care how you do on this next test. I really don't care how you do in this class, but this is stuff that you're going to need for the rest of your life, and I'm trying to impart that to you. And unfortunately, the pandemic is doing a lot of that for us, making kids realize just how the world operates. And I think that's true for us adults as well. Like, I feel like I understand the United States better than I ever have in my life. And the understanding I've gained comes in terms of disappointment. It's heartbreaking in so many ways. But yeah, but we're all getting an education. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. I thought Lindsay was going to say something.
I'm good at interrupting.
Yeah, and something else I was thinking about while you were speaking, Dawn, is that we have friends who have a son who's in college, and this friend of ours, she's part of a parent board at this university, just like parents, like a discussion Facebook group, something. And she said that on this Facebook parents group, the parents are actively discouraging their children from curbing their behavior, even if they're diagnosed positive. So the parents, and this is a major university, but the parents are telling their students, just carry on as normal. Don't let anybody know if you've been diagnosed.
Refuse to be tested.
Yeah, refuse to be tested. Don't just carry on, go on. And that's going to result in a greater loss of life, I think we know. So it's just so complicated, because it's not just teenagers being teenagers, it's also their parents. It's also been highly politicized. It's just, it's everything, complicated.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, wow. Oh, that's a lot, and I get it. Like, as a parent, you do want your child to have certain experiences, but then we have to take into account what is going on, what are the conditions surrounding what we're dealing with now. And so now it just needs to look different. Yeah, we can still have experiences. Like, we went to the beach this summer. What do we need to do to still social distance? Like, we were completely aware of what was going on, though we did have an experience. We're still in a pandemic.
Right.
And so,
Can I add something there?
Yes.
About the college experience. I'm glad to hear my daughter express herself with those thoughts so well, and it sounds like she's coping. And that was our initial thought about sending her back or not and making those decisions. Is even though this is a pandemic and it's a horrible time and very challenging and all of that, she still is becoming an adult. And so just like during normal times, she has to learn how to adjust and be on her own. And, that whole college experience helps to do that. So I felt like even with all of this going on, you still need to get out there and figure it out as a young adult. So I'm happy to hear that. I think the anxiety that Mr. Dycus, I believe it is, just mentioned, I think that's from small children all the way through elderly, just because of all of these challenges that we're facing. But the opportunity in that is that we all learn how to manage anxiety. We all learn different coping skills that, like he said, we can use even well beyond this. There are things that it sounds like my daughter is definitely learning mental health wise, and just how to operate in the world with different challenges that she can use, and that are life skills that can be used forever, and all of us can use it. So that's looking on the bright side. I think those are some opportunities that we can gain from all of this.
Yeah, definitely.
She's an amazing kid, Mama.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to chime in on that college part of it too. I think that our kids that we have in college, to be honest, are adapting probably better than their parents are, because that generation seems to be able to just kind of, I don't know, Jamal, you can maybe agree or not, y'all just seem to kind of take what you're given and kind of roll with it and make the best of it. And whereas we are accustomed to things going a certain way, certain time, this is the way we've done it, this is the way it is. Whereas your generation, my son, who is also a freshman in college, is just like, Mom, you just put the mask on, you wash your hands, and you just do your thing. What's wrong? And I'm having like anxiety and panic attacks and can't even function. And he is just like doing his thing, you know? I mean, and so as a parent, I'm having a hard time because I'm like, do not bring COVID home. He's like, well, I won't come home. I mean, you know, he's just like, it's no big deal. And I can't even go to work. I can't even function. So I think that our kids of that generation are handling it a lot better. But these are also kids who were brought up in a technology generation. They were brought up with the screen time. These things are not new to them, you know, so they tend to do better. But then I worry about them being so careless and so carefree that their lack of judgment may be a little bit different. I don't know. Am I just being an overprotective mother? I'd like to hear what Jamal has to say.
So that's where we were going to go next. We're going to go to Jamal. You know, what about you, Jamal? Did some of what Clark, from what I read, from what Clark said, did any of that resonate with you? And, you know, just kind of tell us about your experience. It's on you.
Yeah, so being a freshman and living on campus, they have a lot of strict rules in place. Like, we can't leave our rooms without wearing our masks. And if you don't live in a dorm, you cannot get in. Like, we can't visit each other's dorms and things like that. So they have those rules in place. But on the other hand, when you're off campus and you decide to do whatever you want to do, that's totally up to you. And living around these kids, like, every day someone gets in an argument, because on the weekends, everyone's talking about, like, okay, what party are we going to hit up? Where are we going? And someone always gets in an argument because someone will bring up how we're still in a pandemic and how we need to stay safe. And there's another side of the argument talking about, well, it's not going anywhere, so I'm going to live my life and have fun, and whatever happens, happens. So we have to deal with that, because none of us want, like, a lot of us are like, we don't want to go home because people want to party in a pandemic and not, like, be careful and think of others, because some people are, like, really nervous about it because they can catch it easier. And, like, me living out of state, I don't want to go all the way back home because people couldn't, like, keep it together. But they make sure that we all get tested. Like, I'm supposed to get tested this week so they can monitor how many people are getting infected, and if living on campus, how that's doing, how that's responding to it. So it's a lot you have to, like, deal with.
So they're going to be monitoring the number of cases that they have, and then making a decision.
Decision to see if living on campus has affected it, if it's really affecting major cases or not.
Okay. I'd be interested.
And we all have the COVID tracking. They put COVID tracking on our phones. So that's how they are able to decide where you've been and where the breakout is occurring. So that happened, I don't know, somebody else could, maybe about a month ago, they downloaded the COVID tracking, and it's on your phone, it's on my phone, it's on everybody's phone. And so they're gearing those locations and being able to see where those hot spots are.
Oh, wow. I mean, they track everything anyway, you know, as if we weren't already being tracked. They
didn't ask our permission, they just did it.
Yeah. Right. Wow.
I got a question real quick.
Oh. Okay.
I got a question for Jamal. Jamal, how is y'all's campus set up? Is it like, well, I went to Grambling State University, and it's pretty much, once you cross over that bridge, it's pretty much an open campus. But I know I've been on other campuses. I've been on Southern's campus. I grew up on Northwestern's campus, and they have gates, so you know exactly where you're at. How is y'all's campus basically set up?
Well, I'm on a campus in a downtown city, so it's literally set up like a city. So everything, it's usually like overpopulated, like you cannot get down the streets and stuff. But since COVID, like a lot of people don't even come downtown. Like majority of the population, it's like a big homeless population. So you just see homeless people and students most of the time. So most buildings are closed and they're adjusted hours. Like I tried to go to Chick-fil-A one day and found out that they close at 3. Everything closes like in the middle of the day. So the campus it's like one big campus downtown. Like you know that you're on the campus because it'll have the school symbol everywhere. But a lot of the like class halls and auditoriums and stuff are closed. So students just go to the library and stuff that's open during the day.
Wow.
That's how it's set up.
Okay. And what school are you attending?
Well, he can't say.
Oh, I'm
He can't
sorry.
say on the Zoom. Well, you can say that.
Oh, okay, you're right. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I went to the same school where Jamal is, and it's just right smack downtown, office buildings and traffic and craziness. And I haven't been there since the pandemic. But what I wanted to say is one of the things that breaks my heart about college freshmen is it just under any normal circumstances, it's a tremendous learning curve. And Jamal and I were speaking earlier, and he seems to know what he wants to do with his life. I was really impressed. But that wasn't my experience at all. I came out of high school completely unprepared. My DNA is hardwired to be a procrastinator. So when I came out of high school, I didn't learn any skills that I needed for college. And my mother, when I was in high school, I think, kind of facilitated my procrastination and enabled it. So I got to college and I got my tail kicked for 2 semesters before I decided I've got to get on the ball here. I've got to change my life. But Jamal, and any college freshman is having to learn to be on your own, to be responsible for yourself. And that in itself, just all by itself, is just tremendously challenging. And I certainly found it to be so. So Jamal is having to deal with this social pressure besides just doing his own homework and his own life schedule. So kudos to you, brother. Like, hang in there. Like, it sounds like I really was impressed with what you said, man. You really sounded like you know what you want to do, and you're way ahead of where I was at your age. So just keep doing what you're doing.
And Dr. DJ, I think you spoke to the rest of the mothers on here that we probably aided in some of our children's habits because we are such control freaks ourselves. So when you say
it's hard to pull back. Yeah, it's tough.
But it seems as though everything that we've kind of been discussing, though, especially after I read Clark's notes, we keep in everything, all the conversations that have been had. In the first conversation with Dawn of a New Day, I discussed the pandemic and the racial pandemic, and then we discussed mental health and the effect on the family, and even through this. Talking about going back to school, we still seem to see the common thread in 2020 as being mental health, right? How are the various schedules and experiences affecting, and this is for anybody, the social and emotional aspect of those involved, especially in the home? Can anybody speak to that as far as their home is concerned?
Dawn, you had cut out a little bit.
Okay. I was just talking about, can anybody speak to how the social and emotional aspect of what we're dealing with, talking about the different schedules? I know some people have, children in person, children on virtual, but how do you see that social and emotional aspect affecting your home?
I'll start.
Okay, I'll go after Tom.
Okay. Yeah. In the spring, when all of this first started and everybody was pretty much on shutdown, it was interesting to see, I had my college daughter home and she was in her room doing her online classes. and the teenager in one room during her ninth grade classes. I was in the office trying to manage my job responsibilities. My husband, you know, he was still having to go to work every day. And so that was challenging because we were all worried, well, don't bring COVID home. And nobody knew what was going on. So it was just a lot of anxiety, trying to manage everything going on. I was stepping into mother role probably way more than ever because I'm okay, make sure you're doing this and make sure you're doing that, and trying to balance my work, which was stressful in itself. So that, to me, that was pretty challenging. Of course, we made it through, and it seems like the teachers were a lot more flexible in the spring. This summer, I found myself really kind of sad and feeling really depressed with having to be at home all of the time and not having to work when we were out, just missing that normalcy of a routine, and or even during the summer being able to go out and do things that you enjoy, go swim and go to the mall where you couldn't do any of that. You were just at home. So that was really challenging. But when it was time to go back to work, I actually was excited to go. I was worried about COVID, but I was glad to get back into that routine, I think, for my own mental health and socially, missing talking to people. I remember getting with some of my girlfriends, and we did a couple of Zooms just because we would get together and go out to eat and this and that. I miss those kinds of things. So being able to visit with them, even if it was virtually, was very helpful for me socially and mentally, and just adjusting to this whole thing. And now I kind of feel better again, been back to work, everybody's back in school. We feel better with where we are with COVID. So
yeah. Ms. Barnett, you were gonna say?
I said I was going to agree with everything she just said. My household, in the spring, there were 4 of us at home, and you have 2 introverts and 2 extroverts. 2 of us were going crazy because we like being out, we like being around people, and to have to stay home. At first it was fun, you know, we did family movies, played games, and did all that to keep ourselves busy. But after a while, you're like, okay, this is boring. You know, what's next? But on one hand, my son, who is an introvert to a T, but needs to be in a structured classroom environment to succeed in school, was struggling. He didn't care about the social aspect of not being in his university anymore. It was, I'm a physics major and I need help. I need, his professor needing assistance. So he was struggling on the inside, and noise, and like my daughter and I are playing games and he's like, quiet, I'm trying to do my work, So our household was totally chaotic, It was hard. And I, like Ton, looked forward to going back to school in August because I wanted an out. I wanted to be able to get out of my house. I couldn't do anything else but to say that I have to go to work. I can't stay home. I have to. So I was excited. I wore my mask, all the PPE, everything that we had to do in order to stay safe. I was willing to do that if that meant that I could get out of my house and have some adult time and conversation with other extroverts who enjoy being around people as well. So it has been difficult to adjust, and I think everybody has adjusted. Even now I'm 6 people in the house, 3 of them online, about to be 4 online. It's quite an adjustment, but my extrovert child has gotten a job. So she's learning virtually at home with school, but she's excited about going to her job every evening just to push a cart out to somebody's car, just so she can get some people interaction. So it's been good.
All right. And I think I was the opposite of you all. I was fine in March. Like I was like, I liked everything slowing down, and I just felt, so complete and so whole. But come about June or July, it was too much. It was too many people here for too long. Because by that time my son was back home from college. So now, and he still got that college spirit in him. And so I'm just like, oh goodness. But here recently, I think I went through that, just not being able to have that degree of separation and having to be all things to all people. And so just yesterday, Anasia was saying, oh, Mommy, you're always just so busy. You're just, you play the nurse so well, and you just play the teacher so well. Or, you're just doing it all. And I said, yeah, I'm playing the nurse and the teacher so well that I can't play Dawn well, right? And she said, well, when you go to sleep. And I said, oh, thank you for when I sleep. Right. Yes, I can be myself in my sleep. And that's why I sleep in sometimes, so I can still be myself for a little longer, because when I wake up, I'm going to have to be somebody else. So, and that's really what it has been. And so just trying to now, like I said, trying to find that balance, and I have to have some outside time. So now, where I said before, I'm not going to go, to the gym at all, because it's just not safe. Now I have to find the hours that not anybody is there, because I'm going to have a time where I'm not with everybody else. I can't. I love them, and I love being whoever I am to them, but those have time limits.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I mean, I was just like you. In March, I was fine. I mean, because my life is constantly on the go. So it forced me to sit down and rest. I mean, like, I don't think I got that much sleep ever in life. Mm-hmm. So I was good. And I went to the doctor for my just regular annual checkup. And she said, how are you holding up? Because most of you, well, you probably don't know, I suffer from depression. And so, I have to go every year to get checked up and to see how the meds are working. And, she was like, well, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm good. And she's like, are you taking your meds? I was like, I don't feel like I need them. Like, I feel like all I needed was sleep. And she said, well, Brittany, I'm just going to tell you, you may be okay right now, but, things may not be okay down the road. So just take your medicine. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll be good. But like, come around maybe June, I started to feel different. I think it was Miss Barnett said that, you play the games, the family games, then the daycare shut down. And I think that's when my world changed. So, having a 2-year-old at home, stay-at-home moms, hats off. That's not my calling. Jesus did not call me to do that. But I was forced to be a stay-at-home mom for about a month with a 2-year-old who is very active and likes to be around people. But, for the first couple of weeks, it was okay. I mean, I found stuff to do. We got the jumping beans and we got water slides, all that stuff was fun. But then it's like, okay, now, are we still in the pandemic? I mean, I thought it would be over by now. Is the world still shut down? What am I supposed to do? So I felt myself going into a depression, because I am used to being on the go so much. And being forced to sit down too long was too much for me. So I did have to tell my friends, I mean, when the restaurants come up, I need brunch and I need a little spirit to go with my brunch, because like Dawn, I felt like I was trapped in my head. Like, I felt like the walls were closing in on me. You can't go anywhere except outside. And then it was hot. And so, it was just, I was not in a good space. That happy place that I was in March, it completely flipped on me in the middle of summer. And I too had to go on vacation. I said, we have to get out of this house. Like, I have to get out of here, because I am literally drowning in my own thoughts, but they're not even productive thoughts. Like, I don't even know what I was thinking. Like, I mean, it just, and the silence, like, it was too much. So I was happy to go back to work, but I did want to teach online in my classroom. Like, it's like, you may have to, go into the building and teach online. That's fine.
That's fine. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with going in the building as long as it's just me. No, I was fine with that. But when they told me, that we were going to have to do I would have to be a face-to-face teacher. And the way that the schedule worked out, I had to see every child in the building. And so I would see every child in the building by Friday. So I would have 3 classes on Monday, 3 different classes on Tuesday, 3 different classes on Wednesday, 3 different classes on Thursday, and 3 different classes on Friday. My anxiety shot through the roof. And, and I told my principal, like, I get it, like, because, I'm considered a connections teacher, so all kids have to go through connections, but we've got to do something different because exposing us to every child in the building is more than what my diagnosis can handle at this point. So, and I mean, I'm very upfront with him about that. So we've done some creative things with the scheduling, and I'm really thankful that I do have a principal now who heard me. And so it won't be as many students that I'm exposed to. I'm still exposed to a variety of students. So it's not just like one age group where, you know, 6th grade, you're only exposed to 6th grade, and 7th grade, I still have 6th, 7th, and 8th graders that I have to be face-to-face with. But it's not as many as before. So we're still working on that whole mental health piece. You know, like I said, I can speak on it because I lived it. You know, I know what the pandemic did to my mental health. So it really is a challenge. I mean, every day is a struggle. It is a true struggle every day. So yeah, I understand where the college students are coming from. I understand where I know some other people spoke about their mental health, so I get it.
Yeah.
Brittany,
Thank
you're
you for being
so
brave
right.
enough
It's
to talk
just,
about your
yeah,
mental
thank you for expressing that and being transparent. I too have struggled like lifelong depression. So the pandemic just compounded it. And it looked all too familiar of dark places that I've been in my life. It was easy to isolate. It was easy to stay in the bed. It was easy not to pull the covers down. And you have to work really hard to just move from the bed to the recliner. Like, that's a struggle for me, where some people don't get that. But when you're isolated in your home on quarantine, taking that 10 feet was like, I don't know, God, if I can do this today. I just don't know. So this whole thing is just adding more. And then the anxiety peaked when the thought of going back to school, and my interaction too is with everyone on campus. You know, not just a classroom of kids, but teachers, students, parents, everyone on campus. And so, you know, getting depressed by thinking about it, getting anxious about it, and it was just too much. So bring on more meds, and I'm just going to stay at the house, and that way everybody will be safe, you know, because it just wasn't going to work for me, you know. And so I applaud y'all who struggle and still are facing it, because like you said, my diagnosis, that was more than I could handle. It was just too much. It was going to be too much, and it was going to be harmful to myself and my family mentally, you know, and then you have that risk of being exposed physically. So it was just more than I could just even wrap my mind around. And so I felt like my body said, just sit still, just sit still right now.
And I think sometimes what we do just with decisions in life, we'll make a decision concerning something and leave somebody out, like the most important component. So we made or I didn't make it, but a decision was made concerning, you know, children and families, and not considering the people who are going to have to teach them. And so I think that component was left out. And so we were concerned about, you know, children's mental health, and we were concerned about, families, you know, working families, people having to get back to work or whatever, but never understanding, first of all, that the teachers have families too. You know, even with those who don't have children, you know, they're still interacting with families, siblings, or parents or something. And so I think that was just a part. We were trying to make it convenient and better for everybody else, but that was a huge component for teachers who still have children. That if I have to be a teacher and be an in-person teacher, but I'm trying to make a decision for my kids to stay at home, you know, that's just a lot. So I know that Coach Spivey talked about, you know, what his principal is doing, and still kudos, you know, to him for making that available for his staff. But does anybody else have those options out there, you know, of school districts that are doing things to step in for teachers, students, and parents that are not okay? And if so, are there any other examples, you know, of that?
One thing, DJ had to leave, but one thing he was saying at the college level is the dean of the college sent an email out pretty early in the game of in the summer, trying to figure out how are we going to reopen, and just asked 2 questions. 1, do you feel safe, comfortable coming back in the classroom? And 2, what are your concerns? And just left it open-ended. And they're trying to address all those things for all the teachers' concerns. And one thing that's just been really fantastic in his school is you know, one of the professors that's there, his wife is doing chemo every other week, and there's no way in the world he can go and expose himself to students. And his daughter also teaches at the same school, so they are 100% virtually teaching online. And that was made acceptable for them.
Right.
You know, it was one email when we found out we'd been exposed to COVID to go 100% virtual, and that was okay. And I think more of what I've heard from teachers, I grew up in a family of educators, so just in hearing what my family and friends have had to say, the support hasn't necessarily come from the school system, but like of those individual in that school. So it's coming from their administrators, it's coming from the fellow teachers, it's coming from that team that they're on, and that's where they're getting that support, is what I'm hearing in most public schools. But I'd be interested to see how like private schools or colleges were doing it differently.
Okay. Anybody else on that same thing?
At our school, I don't feel like there's a whole lot of support for staff as far as that. I think as a counselor, thinking about students, we've done a bunch of things, but on the other side, and listening to Coach Spivey and some of the other educators here talk about what their districts are doing, it's got me to thinking, you know, maybe I need to take some of these ideas back to support teachers more. But on the student side, when this first happened, we immediately jumped in and were providing resources, and we were having Zoom group counseling meetings. We were meeting individually with students that we were already concerned about, that we had been seeing individually. We were making personal phone calls just to check on them. Really trying to be there for our students, but on the staff side, it's not been where it should be.
Okay. And so that was just kind of the last question there, or just kind of last stand. You know, are there some things that we can kind of conclude with that would possibly be some resources for teachers, parents, or students that we can share to assist those facing challenges, so that they can try to get through this with the least amount of anxiety and trauma as possible? Are there some things that anyone can share that might be helpful to others who see this?
One thing that I think that I had to stop, I guess I wanted to be upset with the school district because I felt like they weren't doing enough for us as teachers, but I just kind of took it in my own hands to see, you know, to do what I needed to do for my personal mental health. So with that being said, you know, making sure that I do take my medication every day, and making sure that I sign up for my own counseling outside of this, making sure that I exercise, because, and that's one thing that I haven't been doing, but I know that being able to exercise helps with my depression. And so I've reached out to a couple of my friends in my support circle and said, you know, I really need you to push me to exercise more, like on a regular basis, because it really helps with my depression. Because you know, it gets you out, the endorphins, and I'm kind of like you, Don. I was like, I don't know about going to the gym, you know, but you know, I find those early mornings or really late, it's not that many people there, but at the end of the day, I'm kind of willing to risk it for my mental health. So I've just tried to take better care of myself, because I'm no good to my students when I'm not at my best. I'm no good to my family when I'm not at my best. And one thing that I do know about myself is that when my depression is high, I'm very irritable. And so it comes out in ways that I'm not proud of, and it's normally to people who are closest to me. And, you know, I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I don't want my depression to come out aggressively towards her. So I really had to take a step back and say, you know, Brittany, you got to do some things different, because they're not going to do it for you. You know, they're not giving you those tools and those resources. So let's pick up the phone and say, hey, you know, I might need you to up my dosage back to where it was, you know, and I might need to start those counseling sessions again, just to make it through this time.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you for being transparent about, you know, that Brittany, but it's so important. I think now more than ever, we truly as individuals have to really be mindful of our own mental health and well-being. Because like you were saying, nobody else is going to do it for us. And so we have to make sure that, you know, that we're doing what we need to do for ourselves. Because like you said, if we're not our best selves, we can't be our best selves to anybody else. So that's so true. So does anybody else have anything they want to, okay, go ahead. Yes, Ms. Manker. Oh, and Ms. Hayden, once Ms. Manker finishes, yes, go ahead and chime in. Go ahead.
Okay, but like Brittany said, this school year has had me a lot of being irritable. And I find myself kind of being more irritable than normal, and it runs off into my students, because I have to make sure it's anxiety on me, because do you have your mask on? Are you touching this person? Don't touch this student. Don't share those items. Okay, don't go over here. Don't go over there. So that's a little bit of more anxiety on me. But one thing that I'm learning to do in this school year is to serve better. My students had an activity last week before the Labor Day weekend to tell me what they want to be when they grow up. So, you know, I had doctors, I had teachers, I had firefighters, and then one of my students came up to me and said, I want to be a servant. And I said, okay. And I didn't know if she knew what a servant meant. So I said, okay, draw a picture. Let me see if you know what that means. And sure enough, she drew a picture and she said, Miss Manker, this is me serving people food. And right then and there, I think that was truly God trying to encourage me to say, Ashley, you need to serve them. I know the circumstances are hard. I know I may have a lot of pressure, but I need you to serve them like you're serving me myself. So that's kind of my mindset now going into school every week, is help me to serve these kids, God, and not get too irritable about the safety and health. Yes, the safety and health is important, but I have to also make sure that I'm serving these kids with love.
Come on now. That just provoked an emotion in me. Like, yeah, seriously. And I think that's also a good approach to do, and that being our prayer. Yes, you know, looking at our mental health, but then help me to serve. Because just like this is the first time of me having to parent it during a pandemic, and her having to be a student in it's everybody's first time, you know. And so as people are making decisions and things, we don't know if it's gonna work. We don't know why, because we've never done it before, you know. And so nobody knows it. So we have to have that measure of grace towards people, towards those that are making the decisions. Because I can't imagine having to make that, you know, it's enough trying to make the decision for my house. But then when you're talking about, you know, magnifying that and, you know, looking at Ms. Barnett, you got to think about, you know, not just your house, but then a school. And so then you take it, you know, to your superintendent. Now she got to look at a whole district, you know. So I definitely am going to think of that differently, having that measure of grace towards people who are making a decision. And definitely knowing that we're having this conversation, but some of them are not able to truly have a vulnerable conversation and to express those things that we're able to talk about right now. So yeah, so thank you for sharing that, and kudos to that. So I hope she got an A for being a servant. For being a servant, especially when I don't care what the picture looked like. Sometimes those are God's little things. Let me show you this. Okay, that's good. Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody else before we conclude?
Hey, just as somebody who works in mental health, just thank you guys for sharing what you shared. And sometimes that really does inspire other people to work on their mental health in ways that they hadn't maybe thought about before, or encourage them to do something. So really, really, really thank you for sharing your struggles. And you're welcome to add me on your Facebook if you need just a place to vent or talk. you're welcome to do that too, because we all need a bigger support system, especially right now.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you, Lindsay, so much for acknowledging that. You're absolutely right. Miss Haley, did you have
a teacher that I know wanted to desperately participate in this panel, and I just wanted to add to what Dawn was saying, make sure that we show them grace, because she was very afraid to stand up for herself and other coworkers, and she doesn't want teachers to be afraid. She doesn't want to be afraid. So through all of this, we, those of us who are in leadership positions, admin, we need to show them grace and give them safe spaces to be able to share how they're feeling, because they're people too. And she feels that she can't stand up and say what she believes. I actually wrote it down because of humiliation and shame and underhanded remarks by administration or people who are higher than school admin who are not walking in their shoes every day. So we need to be careful and always show grace to the people who are on the front line and create safe spaces for those people.
Absolutely. I'm always for safe spaces. That's right. So good. Okay, well, we're gonna go ahead. Does anybody have anything else? Are we good? And I know I'm laughing at Miss Barnett. You're not the only one on the panel who was also in the same place doing that. So, okay. Well, all right, everybody. This has been another conversation. I hope that everyone has found this dialogue helpful as well as somewhat therapeutic. And so we want to be able to share this. I apologize. I think I actually figured out what ended up happening. We ended up using a different link versus our personal link. And I think I had to use my personal link in order to go to Facebook Live. So I ask you, panel, please. This is being recorded. And so I'll definitely share it in my places, but I will also send you the link. And please share it with your other teacher friends, student friends, parent friends, because I really do think that this has been a valuable conversation. And I'm glad that we still went along with it, regardless of, how technology or ignorance may have played a part in us being able to go forward. But please do share it, and just know that I appreciate you all so much for taking y'all's time on a Saturday. I normally do conversations on a Friday, but that started during the summer, and now that school has started back, I just know Friday evenings don't look good for people anymore. So so I thank y'all for spending your Saturday morning / afternoon with me, even for those of you who also had some chapter meeting stuff going on. Look, I thank y'all active ones so much. So anyway, but if nothing else, if nobody has anything, I appreciate you all so much. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording at this time. So bye to those who will watch.